So beautiful.
Oh, I don't know. I wasn't expecting that one. Yeah, they're just the great. It's just so great. This is why it's so nice to not have makeup on. Thank you.
So, Meghan Markle wanted to be the next Martha Stewart, but Netflix just handed her a recipe for disaster. Yup, they pulled the plug on her cooking show before it even preheated, and she did not take it well. We're talking jam jars that were more branding than bake. A lemon zest moment that turned into a full-on PR flop. Email campaigns sent to her toddlers. Yes, actual babies. And tears that looked like they were scheduled right before golden hour.
This is about connecting with friends and just learning. Let's go.
So here's what went down. Meghan Markle had this big vision, a cooking show for Netflix that was supposed to show her in a softer, more relatable light. But according to inside sources, the pitch didn't land at all. Netflix execs weren't impressed. One insider said it felt shallow, overproduced, and completely unbelievable. Instead of giving homey vibes, it came off like a carefully curated PR stunt. There were no real cooking struggles, no actual messes, just polished countertops, color-coordinated dishes, and of course, perfectly edited monologues about balance and motherhood. Netflix apparently saw right through it. They didn't want another celebrity cooking show that felt like a vanity project. One source said it felt more like a branding vehicle than a cooking show. That was the red flag. It didn't matter how many lemons she zested on camera, the whole thing seemed more about the image than the food. And let's not forget the tone-deaf moments. There were segments where Meghan supposedly wrote handwritten notes to her kids about the recipes they'd one day enjoy together. Some people thought it felt fake, almost like she was trying too hard to be the Pinterest perfect mom instead of just being real. At a time when viewers want authenticity, especially in lifestyle content, Meghan's show seemed like it was doing the opposite. It wasn't charming, it was polished to the point of being unrelatable. And that was enough for Netflix to back away quietly. But instead of accepting the flop and moving on, Meghan allegedly threw a tantrum that could curdle cream. The rejection didn't sit well at all. According to insiders, Meghan was furious. Behind the scenes, she pointed fingers at everyone but herself, producers, Netflix, even random staff members. She claimed there was sabotage and blamed so-called royal haters for influencing the decision. In her words, this wasn't just a show. It was supposed to inspire moms and show the real moments of her life as a working mother. But staff insiders painted a different picture. They said she was more concerned about lighting, camera angles, and product placement than about the actual food or message. One former crew member described it as a power struggle every day. Meghan allegedly overrode creative direction constantly. Simple segments would take hours to film because she kept asking for retakes. She wanted to control every frame, every line, and even the background music. At one point, things got so tense that multiple staff members walked off set mid-production. One source said it was impossible to get anything done. Every time we made progress, it was like we had to start over because Meghan didn't like how it looked or sounded. She also allegedly pushed hard for brand partnerships, which clashed with Netflix's desire for a more authentic vibe. The message got lost in the marketing, and it became clear to the team that this wasn't about cooking or connecting with moms. It was about building a new Meghan lifestyle empire, and no one was buying it. And if you think this meltdown stopped at the kitchen door, Meghan took this drama to the next level and straight to the press.
I was doing what I've always loved to do, and people couldn't see that more broadly, but what I'd love to do was always make things in my kitchen, do small flower arrangements, make a lot of jam.
So after Netflix pulled the plug, Meghan didn't stay quiet. She popped up on a podcast not long after, ready to tell her side of the story, and it was exactly what you'd expect. She talked about hard days, feeling misunderstood, and needing time to reset. And of course, there were tears, or at least the idea of tears. Her voice cracked, she paused mid-sentence, dabbed the corner of her eye, but not a single actual tear fell. Listeners were quick to catch on. Social media lit up with comments like, "This feels more rehearsed than Suits," and "She's crying without crying again." It was giving full-on performance mode, the kind where everything's just a little too perfect. Her hair, flawless. Her lighting, soft and golden. The background, a perfectly styled set that screamed casual royalty. But it wasn't just the vibe, it was the content too. The whole conversation was framed to make Meghan look like the brave, wounded creative who poured her heart into something meaningful, only to have it dismissed by people who don't understand real women's stories. But let's be honest, this wasn't about real women, this was about her. Even the hosts acted more like her personal hype team. They nodded through every line, praised her strength, and didn't challenge a single thing. No pushback, no questions about the Netflix drama, and definitely no mention of the behind-the-scenes tension. It all felt like a planned PR move, not a real conversation. One critic said it best: it was less of a podcast and more of a branding opportunity wrapped in soft lighting. And that's really what Meghan has mastered, turning every flop into a chance to play the misunderstood heroine. But this time, even some of her loyal fans weren't buying it. Because when you cry on cue and nothing ever seems to be your fault, eventually people start noticing the pattern. Because nothing says authentic like a flawless blowout, perfect lighting, and tears cued on command. And just when you thought the performance was over, it got even more theatrical. Meghan launched what can only be described as a full-blown relatability campaign. Suddenly, she's out here talking about baking cookies, doing preschool drop-offs, and sending nightly emails to her toddlers. In one interview, she said she writes little digital love notes to her kids at night because she wants them to one day read her thoughts and know how much she cared. Most people were like, what toddlers are checking Gmail? And then there's the cooking claim. Meghan insisted she does all the domestic stuff, zesting lemons, whipping up dinners, keeping it cozy at home. But the fans weren't having it. People pointed out that she's constantly photographed with a glam team, stylists, and staff, and now suddenly she's baking muffins from scratch? One clip in particular sealed the deal. She was on camera trying to zest a lemon and almost sliced her hand open. It was awkward, slow, and painful to watch, and it didn't exactly scream culinary queen. It looked like someone who's never actually been in a kitchen without a full crew. And that's really the issue. The whole thing feels so overproduced, so forced, that instead of making Meghan more relatable, it's made her look even more disconnected. People don't want fantasy, they want reality. And reality isn't staging a kitchen scene where the counter's cleaner than a hospital floor and the flour looks like it was placed there by a prop stylist. But if you thought the emails to toddlers were wild, wait till you hear about the gift basket signed Her Royal Highness.
I just want to raise a glass to you guys. This feels like a new chapter that I'm so excited that I get to share. All of that is just part of that creativity that I've missed so much.
Now you'd think after stepping back from royal duties, Meghan would retire the whole Duchess branding, right? Nope. Behind the scenes, she's still holding on to the title like it's her entire identity. And the proof? It's in the jam. Multiple influencers and content creators received gift baskets from Meghan's team, filled with homemade jam, lemon cakes, and hand-packed boxes. But what really stood out wasn't the jam itself, it was the label. Each one signed off with, "From the Duchess of Sussex." No HRH on the surface, but definitely a royal signature vibe. And folks were not feeling it. But it goes beyond food baskets. Meghan's team has filed trademark applications for an entire lifestyle empire: yoga mats, meditation cushions, cupcakes, sprinkles, pet bowls. It's all being funneled through her lifestyle label, which is clearly aiming to be the next Goop, but with a tiara. The problem? The public's not buying it. People see it for what it is, a glossy rebrand trying to cash in on a title she no longer actively represents, and it's backfiring. The more she leans into the Duchess aesthetic, the more the whole thing feels hollow. There's this growing disconnect. She wants to market authenticity while clinging to a title that's all about institution and status. The result? A brand that doesn't know if it wants to be royal, relatable, or revolutionary, and instead ends up being none of them. And just when it seemed like the royal rebrand couldn't get worse, came the Time Summit moment that broke the internet.
So we were really fortunate to find something close by. But I think, look, all of that is part of how I take care of myself. And tapping into what really ignites my joy is part of that. And being creative has really, really been anchored in that for this moment.
So Meghan showed up to the Time 100 Impact Summit looking polished, poised, and somehow more branded than ever. But here's the kicker, she wasn't even on the actual Time 100 list. Rumors quickly revealed that her team had paid for a speaker slot, a strategic move to keep her name in headlines even when the accolades weren't exactly earned. And then came the speech. What was supposed to be an empowering moment turned into a string of confusing metaphors, vague platitudes, and phrases that left people scratching their heads. One line that caught major flack, she talked about putting tiny dried flower petals on eggs. Nobody knew what it meant, not even the audience. It was the kind of statement that tried to sound deep but landed somewhere between baffling and bizarre. Social media went wild. People accused her of being tone deaf, overly rehearsed, and completely out of touch. The glam squad was clearly on standby. Her tears were camera ready, the lighting was just right, and everything felt too perfect. Once again, the moment that was supposed to build her up only pushed her further into the performative category. Even her critics weren't surprised. They said the summit was just another example of Meghan trying to build a legacy off of image, not impact. And honestly, it worked, but not in the way she intended. The clips trended, but not because people were inspired. It was all about the cringe factor, the over-branding, the fact that she keeps showing up in spaces where it feels like the narrative is more important than the message. At this point, the question isn't why Netflix shut it down, it's how it ever got greenlit to begin with. But what do you think? Is Meghan just misunderstood? Or is she burning every chance she gets? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and serve the royal tea.